All right, let's see if make sure the video is sound is on. All right, let's see what's going on. All right, let's see what's going on. Hold on 1 second. All right, I'm gonna start the read in just a second. All right, so let's see what's going on. All right, so let's see what's going on. All right. My name is Ari, the Healing Empress, aka the Fly Goddess. All right, and we're gonna see what's going on in your energy. All right, let's see what's going on in the energy. All right, let's see. Yeah, we're gonna start with these. All right. All right, so the first card to come out is inheritance. All right, this could be something that you have no clue about. All right, this is something that you are unaware that you have. All right, this could be something that somebody left for you. All right, and I got started in a new life. All right, whatever this is, it's something that can allow you to be able to start a new life. All right, Magician is here, Aries and Taurus is here. There's a new life getting ready to start. All right, there's something that's coming together, all right? Some sort of divine union, and this could have everything to do with coming together with the things that belong to you this lifetime, all right? Which is like an inheritance, all right? There's a new love cycle getting ready to happen, and this could be the love for yourself, okay? And then I got missing you. This could have something to do with the ancestor, all right? Somebody is ready to see you on a certain type of level. All right, road trip is here. All right, so you could be going somewhere insignificant, found out. All right, wanting you now is here. Somebody could have found out something. Somebody broke some sort of trust. Somebody did something. All right, somebody did something, took something by force. All right, wanting you now. All right, so it can have something to do with resources. Somebody could be, oh, Gemini is here, judgment. There's some sort of judgment getting ready to happen. All right, so your ancestors are getting ready to bless you. All right, your ancestors are wanting to give you some sort of change. All right, you could be receiving some sort of communication. All right, wealth is here, reward, money, prosperity, blessings. All right, spirit want to bless you. All right, something about a previous lover in reverse. Bank accounts will be filled. All right, so somebody could have been stealing something. It could have been a previous person. All right, can't stop thinking about you. There's some sort of miracle coming your way. All right, and this could have something to do with a sister. All right, Egypt. So our sister could be looking over you. Somebody could be finding out that some kids ain't theirs. All right, whoever was trying to come against you. All right, there's an unexpected change that's getting ready to happen. Again, your ancestors is ready to bless the situation. All right, a big change is happening. All right, let's see. Cricket, you get ready to find out something about somebody who's cricket. All right, get ready to buy a car. Somebody could be buying a car. There's a decision that's getting ready to be made. All right, making the right decision. Some sort of finances is coming towards you. Aunt is significant as well. All right, it could have something to do with money. All right, a new home is here. A message for change. Bank accounts will be filled. All right, a previous person could have helped somebody take something. All right, this could have been a previous relationship. All right, somebody from your past. All right, blessing. Somebody from your past could have been working with your family. All right, love's only you. This is somebody who claimed to care. Unexpected gain, but this is somebody who just who was there for an unexpected gain. All right, you're getting ready to be stable. Something about an uncle. All right, blames them. Somebody's blaming themselves on the inside. All right, somebody could have did something. Somebody was manifesting, or somebody was praying that something would not come out. All right, to you. Somebody could be on other drugs. All right, the next 72 hours is significant. There's some sort of message coming in for change. All right, something about an uncle. All right, an uncle could have did something by force. They could have did something that he could have did something that he wasn't supposed to do. All right, and somebody could be finding out about that as well. A new car is here. All right, so somebody's getting a new car. Pay attention to whoever is getting a new car. Yes, you are right. Something about an uncle. All right, maybe somebody is buying something with some money that belongs to you. Somebody, whoever this is, could possibly have a baby. All right, or have a child. All right, somebody is coming. Somebody is. I heard fake apology. Like if you find out something, there's some sort of fake apology attached to this. All right, vacation coming soon. All right, travel. There's some sort of travel here, or you could be getting ready to go somewhere. All right, vacation, a significant transition, road travel. All right, you could travel, or you could be getting ready to travel. All right, taking you out to eat. All right, so somebody could be taking you out to eat, or you could be going out to eat. That could be significant. Right, and something about a grandmother is here. All right, are you ready to sign a lease? All right, so you could be moving. All right, so it's some sort of blessing coming down for you. All right, unexpected gain. Something that you're supposed to have is getting ready to make its way to you. All right, let's see. I'm gonna pull from another deck. All right, so let's see. All right. Oh, my eye is itching. That could be significant. All right, let's see. All right, so illusion versus reality, fantasy versus fact. All right, you may be attached to what could be and not what is. All right, so spirit is basically saying, see things for what it is. All right, and once you see things for what it is, spirit is saying fix it. All right, or fix what you can. or you might just be seeing things for what it is, and or you want to see things in a different light, but you should be seeing things the way that it is, especially when it comes to people, right? Oh my, it's real bad. I don't want to. You can look up what does it mean when your right eye meet itches. All right, that could be significant for you. All right. I have delay the decision. All right, you do not have enough clarity yet. All right, so this could be something that you were trying to do, or something that you were wanting to do, but you're needing some sort of clarity. All right, you needing some sort of clarity. Um, the truth is being revealed. All right, there's some sort of truth that's being revealed. All right, when it becomes quiet, no, what's real becomes obvious when the noise dies down. All right, so spirit is saying basically, sitting with yourself is something that God is trying to show you. All right, so it's like spirit is asking you to put yourself in isolation. All right, have conversations with God and ask God what it is that He wants you to do, because He'll definitely give you clear signs. All right, precipitate. Why am I saying precipitate? Because why am I saying precipitate? All right. Let's see something. Let's see something. Precipitate. All right. So to respond by making a correspondence. All right. A part of a machine move back and forward in a straight line. All right. The favorite was reciprocated. All right. Like an equal give and take, reciprocity. All right. Equal give and take. All right. So equal energy is present at this time. So spirit is asking you to um, equal give and take. Give what's given. All right. But also give to yourself what spirit gives to you, what God gives to you. God gives you love. All right. You should be loving. You should be loving yourself. All right. Pause before action. Not every feeling needs an immediate response. All right. Sometimes certain things are meant for you to just sit and just listen. All right. And take it in and understand it and not react all the time. Okay. Green flag energy, open door. There's a path that is available to you now. All right. And I'm feeling like it's the path of change. You have the ability to change things. All right. You have the ability for that. You can wake up tomorrow and want things to be completely different, and they can be. All right. It's all in what you want. All right. Closed door. Rejection can be redirection and protection. All right. When one door closes, one door opens. All right. Inner knowing. You already know who. All right. Or it says you already know. Stop asking for signs after the answer came. All right. So you be asking God for signs, and sometimes you be ignoring them, or you really just don't think that it's that easy for God to give you signs. All right. But God gives you signs all the time. All right. Let's see here. Clear intentions. All right, what's right in front of you? What's right in front of you is direct and honest. All right, and that should be yourself. All right. Protect your energy. Not every space deserves your access. All right, and energy leak. This drains more than it gives. All right, anything that drains more than it gives. All right, you should separate yourself from that. All right, anything that's more draining than giving. All right, you have to separate yourself. All right, protection, boundaries, and power. You have to stand firm on your beliefs. All right, and stop bending to keep others comfortable or happy. All right, So it's about having boundaries. It's about having boundaries. It's about having, you know, basically it's just about having boundaries. All right. Not letting people, you know, overstep a lot of things when it comes to you. When it comes to the decisions that you make in life, all right, you're doing the things that you're wanting to do. You're not allowing anybody else to live through you, all right. Emotional fog, feel first and decide later. All right, Spirit is asking you to feel first and decide later. Um, if you love me so much, donate. Other than that, I don't want the fake. I don't want the fake love. All right, show some appreciation. What are you ignoring? All right, trust often sits in what you are brushing aside. All right, so truth, trust often sits in what you keep brushing off. All right, so there's something that you keep brushing off. All right, the story you keep telling yourself. All right, separate the facts from the narrative. Spirit wants you to separate the facts from the narrative. All right, and not yet. Timing matters more than force right now. All right, so Spirit has you learning lessons. There's certain lessons that Spirit wants you to learn before you get to the next level in your life. But everything is starting with learning to trust your intuition and learning to love yourself. All right, you gotta love yourself more than anybody could ever love you. All right, and that way you'll be whole because nobody can love somebody who's half. All right, it should be two whole people. All right, not a whole person and a half person. All right, so you gotta have a whole shitload of self love about yourself and just wanting more in life. All right. Crowned one. I honor myself as chosen, worthy, and set apart. All right, this card talks about self respect, confidence, all right, sacred standards, and divine identity. You are not simply, you are not too much, all right? You are not simply for every space, all right? Meaning you can't mix and mingle with everybody, all right? Not like you could in the past, all right? When you get older, you realize that it's a lot of shit that you just don't resonate with anymore, and it's people who you're not going to resonate with anymore, and that's okay. All right, golden throne. I sit boldly in the power that belongs to me. All right, reclaim your seats, boundaries, self respect, authority, standards, and no longer shrinking for others. All right, Spirit is asking you to be yourself. All right, Spirit is asking you to be yourself. Black obsidian. I am shielded and grounded, untouchable in spirit. All right, strong protection. Clearing card. It represents energetic shielding, truth, spiritual boundaries, and shadow release. You are being called to protect peace and release what is draining you. All right, the things that drain you, you have to release them. All right, because those are the things that are holding you back from being able to grow. All right, and most of the time it's just the past. All right, divine inheritance. I am worthy of the blessings written into my lineage. Blessings, abundance, favor, gift, and sacred opportunities, all right, belong to you. You are not disconnected from what was promised to your bloodline. Receive what is yours without guilt. All right, so know that you are worthy of having more. All right, know that you are worthy of having more and ask God for it. All right, Pharaoh's spirit. I lead my life with confidence, wisdom, and authority. Being called to lead, not follow. All right, so Spirit is saying you a leader. You ain't no follower. All right, leaders, bold leadership, bold decisions, self. respect, and standing firm in you. I'm sorry, standing firm in your truth. All right, stop doubting. Stop doubting yourself. Um, yeah, stop doubting your right to make up for space. All right, so don't apologize for being you. All right, don't apologize for being you. Now, I mean the authentic you, not the one that doesn't love themselves. I'm talking about when you get to a point of you are and you have authority over your own life. All right, and you are walking in your path. Don't apologize for who you are becoming. All right, don't apologize for the change in you. All right, scribe rising, arise, transform, and renew with sacred power. All right, and this talks about rebirth, transformation, renewal, movement, resurrection energy. If life felt stagnant, this represents forward motion and a spiritual comeback. All right, so something's going to get ready to happen for you. All right, something's going to get ready to happen for you. Sacred womb, I create from the power and a holy place. Creation, fertility, intuition, manifestation, spiritual bath, creating a business, all right, healing, love, a new venture for yourself and your energy, sacred. All right, so something is getting ready to change. Something is getting ready to give you some sort of hope, or you're getting ready to see some sort of miracle that's going to push you in a new direction of believing more in self, is what I'm hearing. Okay, let's see. All right, something's been changed with your finances. All right, and it says raise your price. All right, your value is higher than what you're being offered. All right, so what I get with that is everybody don't deserve your access. All right, some people don't. Some people can't pay to play. All right, some people can't pay to be in your face. All right, so Spirit is saying up your price. All right, CEO energy. Step fully into your authority. All right, because you were meant to be a leader. All right, you were not meant to follow anything. All right, wealth builder, long term money and stability. All right, so you got some sort of something that's coming towards you where it's going to allow you to be able to make some sort of money. All right, wealth builder again, long term money and stability. There's something you're getting ready to receive, something that's going to give you some sort of long term stability. All right, financial money flows here, investment. All right, something previously planted is paying off. So I'm hearing a thought. It's something that you thought about. All right, and it's getting ready to pay off. All right, wanting help. All right, wanting guidance, reaching out for guidance. All right, that's a seed. All right, and you planted a seed, and God is getting ready to do something crazy in your life. All right, for taking a chance on yourself. All right. Let's see. Booked and busy. Demand increases. So that talks about money coming in because if the demand is in an increase, hey love. If the demand is in an increase, then actually I'm gonna do a reading for you today too. All right, a full moon read. Well, energy reads. No, it'll have some of that shit in there. Booked and busy. All right, demand is increasing. All right, strings attached. Offer comes in with hidden expectations. Oh, I love you too, girl. I know this energy is funky as fuck. I know you feel it, so yeah. All right, strings attached. Often comes with hidden expectations. All right, so there's some sort of opportunity, but there's a couple opportunities where Spirit is testing out your discernment. All right, not every open door, all right, means that it is an opportunity for you, all right, because you can go through them, but it's like what you got to deal with after you go through these opportunities, right? Strings attached, and the offer comes with a hidden expectation. So make sure you know all of the details before accepting some sort of invitation to collaborate with somebody. All right, align. Yes, this is an opportunity for you. All right, so Spirit is saying just check all of the boxes. All right, when it comes to signing something, some sort of paperwork. All right, and it has everything to do with wealth builder. All right, long term money and stability. All right, you got the job. This could be a job, or you're going for another job. Something about a job. All right, success, acceptance, and green light. Whatever it is, you got it. All right, because the open door popped out. There's a new opportunity that's getting ready to be available for you, and it has something to do with your work career. All right, yeah, your work and your career. Some sort of offer and opportunity, boss energy. All right, maybe some sort of promotion. All right, leadership, authority, entrepreneurship. All right, royal inheritance. All right, so this definitely could be an increase. Yeah, overflow and abundance and increase. All right, CEO energy. You definitely could be moving into a higher position at your job. All right, binding agreement is here. A commitment that carries weight. All right, so I'm hearing less strenuous, but more. Let's see, more responsibility, but less strenuous. All right, so there's a big fish offer here, a major offer with a high reward potential. All right, another opportunity. So this is an opportunity of expansion. All right, growth into a larger space, role, or some sort of platform. All right, but it's definitely an upgrade. It's definitely an upgrade. All right. Clocked out. It's time to leave a draining environment. All right. So what you're doing right now might be draining. All right. And spirit is getting ready to change something with your finances. All right. With your job. Could be some. It's definitely sound like an upgrade. All right. Let me pull a few more cards out this deck. All right. Luxury. All right. High value living. Quality, premium pricing. Yeah. Something raise the price. So you'll definitely get some sort of increase. All right. A divine assignment. This opportunity is tied to your purpose. All right. Workplace politics. All right. Be mindful of the competition and gossip or agendas at your job. All right. Stay clear of that. All right. Secure the bag. Take the opportunity seriously and move wisely. Spirit wants you to use your discernment. All right. Sometimes certain things can be too good to be true when it comes to how someone acts. So watch that too. All right. Let's see. Three more cards from here. One more. All right. Recognition, visibility, praise, and being noticed. All right. So again, that feels like some sort of promotion, a golden opportunity, a rare one. All right. So this is something that you didn't even think, that you didn't even know somebody could have been looking at you for. All right. But this comes with you wanting change, wanting something, with you wanting different. All right. Misaligned opportunity. All right. Not every door for you. Not every door open is for you. All right. So you could have missed this opportunity in the past. All right. It could have been something that you needed to square away when it comes to your life in order for you to be able to upgrade or receive this sort of promotion. All right, but booked and busy, demand is increasing. And then you got overflow, abundance, and increase again. All right, so there's definitely income coming in. All right, let's see. I'm gonna use one more deck here. All right, let's see. All right, House of Bloodlines, the ancestors. All right, guidance, protect, and inheritance wisdom. Your relationship may be tied to an ancestral lesson. All right, blessing or spiritual support. All right, this card can also suggest that you are not navigating this season alone. All right, so the relationship that you're in could be tied to an ancestral lesson. There's a lesson that you were supposed to learn. all right, from this relationship, all right. Ignoring ancestral patterns and repeating what was never healed. All right, so again, it's something that needs to be healed within self. All right, I receive the wisdom that guides me forward. All right, that's the affirmation you can say. All right, I receive the wisdom that guides me forward. All right, then you got the House of Spirit, the sacred mirror, reflection, mirroring, and self awareness. All right, this card reveals that a connection is reflecting something back to you, your wounds, desires, fears, and growth. Projection, blame, or refusing to see your own patterns. All right, allow love to reveal me to myself honestly. All right, so a lot of times the things that you don't like in a relationship or the things that you're going through with somebody else is a reflection of what you need to heal in yourself. All right. So it's almost like you're never blaming the other person. You're always healing within. All right. We're never pointing the fingers. All right. House of Hearts. All right. The bond. Deep emotional attachment exists. This card speaks of closeness and soul recognition, trust, and emotional connection. A bond may be strengthening or revealing itself. Be mindful of unhealthy attachments, dependencies, or confusing emotions. Emotional intense with true, damn, I can't even talk, compatibility. My relationships are rooted in trust, not fear. All right, let's see. All right, let me pull two more cards. All right, prophecy. A destined truth and connection is unfolding. This card points to a relationship or a lesson that feels written, faded, spiritually significant. Something larger is at work. Not every intense connection is destined. All right, discern between destined, timing, and emotional attachment. What is meant for me will reveal itself clear. All right, so some things in life aren't meant to be permanent. All right, and this can be people, places, and things. All right, sometimes you are around people for a season. All right, you are around people for a season. All right, let's see. Oh, I ain't even see them right there. Hold on, let me pull one more time. Dolliver is significant. That's the last name. I don't know why I said that. All right, the awakening, spiritual clarity, truth, and emotional revelation. This card marks a moment of seeing clarity about a person, your patterns, or what is being shown, or staying asleep to protect the fantasy. I welcome the truth that sets me free. All right, so you may be trying to stay in a comfort zone, and sometimes you have to move out of that comfort zone, all right, to get clarity or truth and understanding. All right, so let's see real quick. All right, what's getting ready to happen? Spirit, what's happening next? What should they be aware of? All right, there's some sort of journey getting ready to happen. It's something that you don't see. It's a lot of fortune here. All right, good lady is here. Somebody is a false person. All right, priestess is here. All right, something is happening for you. All right, so it's like you're knowing something is getting ready to happen. You can feel it, but you just don't know what it is. All right, you're getting ready to come into something. You're getting ready to find out about a false person. All right, this could have been somebody that you trusted, somebody who was trying to interfere in your life. All right. Ace of Cups here. This is somebody who was doing something over and over again. All right. To stop your new beginning. I really feel like this is some sort of relative. All right. It's abundance here in a home. All right. And a lot of money. I'll tell you, this has something to do with a fucking inheritance. All right. A mother figure is significant. Um, Somebody could have hid something, but whatever it is, it's coming back. Something about all you gotta do is love on yourself. All you gotta do is love yourself more than anybody else could ever love you. All right. It's almost like somebody has some sort of curse on you. All right. It's like somebody wants to. It's like somebody is pushing bad energy, bad juju on you. All right. Spiritual bath. All right. A spiritual bath. There's a letter also that you can write while we're under the full moon. All right, ask Miss. You can ask Miss Sharon to help you do it. All right, but it is the letter writing to God, writing to your ancestors. All right, you got 3 days before the full moon, 3 days after, so you have some energy. All right, and you're gonna write down on this letter. All right, what it is that you want for your life. All right, what is it that you want to see happen in your life? Don't talk about the things that you don't want. You're gonna talk about the things that you are expecting to see in your life. All right, so you're basically writing it in existence. All right. And then you're going to write the time and the date that you start and the time and the date that you finish. And then you're going to come back and tell me what it is. And then I'm going to do another video for you. All right. But write a letter to Spirit. All right. Telling God what it is that you want for your life. All right. And why. All right. And don't forget to give thanks for what God has already done. All right. And then proceed to tell God what it is that you want. All right. And after you do that, you let me know, and then I will, I will go over whatever the time and date and stuff like that means after I give you that. All right. Then I'll show you what to do with the rest. All right. Is there anybody else? It's only one person on here. All right, I had to finish up this read. I know I'm probably gonna wake up late as fuck. All right, not too late. I might wake up like 12. All right, I might. That ain't too late. That ain't too late. Shit, girl. I might not even fucking. I might be up before that knowing my crazy ass. I don't know. My sleep pattern is very fucking weird. I ain't been asleep. I've been having long days. Like I wake up, like I be up all night, and I go to sleep now, and I go to sleep like now, and I won't wake up till like between 2 and 6. It's real fucking stupid right now. And I was like, okay, God, whatever you doing. But girl, I'm around this bitch crying and just, I don't know what the fuck, bitch. Releasing. You hear these birds just chirping like a motherfucker. You hear? All right. I love you guys. I will talk to you in the messenger since you up. 'Cause I don't know why the fuck you up. All right. I will see you guys later. And if you have any questions, you guys, or want any readings, feel free to email me. All right. They're in most of the descriptions on the videos. All right. Or you can look in the community tab, or it's in the title of some of the readings. All right, you guys. Talk to you later.